Hoopball podcast listeners, are you a fantasy expert and want to write or podcast for Hoopball? Do you have aspirations of covering a team? Are you a master of sales and want to earn some cash on the phones? Well, we've got good news. Hoopball's recruiting. If you think you have what it takes, hit us up at Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter or by emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com. Again, that's at Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter or emailing teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com.
The following is a Hoopball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy DFS Today on Hoopball. This is our first edition for the NBA restart bubble. I am super excited. I'm your host tonight, Santino Cacone, and I am here with the one and only, the golden boy of Hoopball DFS, Mike Apotria. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Listen, I don't know what I'm more ecstatic about, the fact that we're going to be breaking down some slates with guys with pricing, or the fact that you were just awfully nice to me on that intro. I mean, that's something that I don't get too often. I'm glad that it's going to be forever cemented in recording. So whenever, I'm just feeling down and I'm having a gloomy day, I could just remember that one time where one of my best friends of almost, 20 years now gave me my first compliment. It feels good, man. How you doing?
Awesome. I'm glad you can take that in stride and you like that one. But yeah, I am super excited too. Later today, we will have the first NBA action in just about 4.5 months now. It feels like so much longer. It feels like forever, but we will have basketball back, and that is an exciting time. And we're going to have some good teams on the docket. We're going to have two of the three favorites to win the championship this year in that first night. Today is only going to have a 2-game slate, four teams in total. But anything is better than nothing, and I'm super excited to see this through. So you guys will probably be listening to this when you go for your morning commute. Some things might change after, but we can hit on the big news. Some big news in the first game is the Jazz and the Pelicans. Zion Williamson, he's questionable to play. He got to the bubble late because he had to leave for personal issues. He's been practicing on 5-on-0, but we're not quite sure if he's there. That's something to keep an eye out on. And big news out west in the Lakers and Clippers. Lou Williams is not going to play. If you haven't been paying attention by now, he left the bubble for a family emergency, and he went to a strip club. He says for food, but he's going to have to be quarantined for a little while. Montrezl Harrell also left the bubble. He's not going to play tomorrow or tonight. And Patrick Beverley is questionable. He might play, he might not play, but that's a big one. They might not have two of their top 2 point guards. As we know, Rajon Rondo is hurt. Avery Bradley is hurt. And for the Jazz, Bogdanovich is also hurt. So these are some big shaking news out there, and then that's what we'll break down this slate for. But this first game, Jazz Pelicans, starts at 6:30 Eastern time, and we're getting so close, Mike. How excited are you for that first taste of basketball? And that might be the more fun game. I know the Lakers Clippers is going to be more competitive, but Jazz Pelicans, they're both playing for something. They're both playing for seedings, one playing for trying to get in the playoffs. I think this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think this game is probably going to be a little bit lower owned than most people would think going into it, just because it's the least sexy game. A lot of people, on the West Coast might still be working around, 3:30 when this game tips off for them. So, that sometimes, I know it's the first night, I know there's only 2 games. Some of those little small things sometimes impact ownership decision and things of that nature. And just the sheer fact of, if this news winds up being a game time decision, or if we just hear that he's playing, some people might kind of steer away from it. But I'm super excited about it. 6:30, I'm out of work at like 4:35. I'm rushing home. I'm watching this game, man. I'm sitting down. I'm watching basketball up until the point of us recording the next podcast. So, that will be fun. I'll be able to, talk about a little hoops while I'm on air, hopefully, because I'm always checking these scores nonstop. But man, I'm ready to dive into this. I think you touched on it, man. The Zion news is going to be the one thing that we need to wait and see on. That's going to drastically impact the way that we look at this team. But you led off with it. They're actually playing for something, and that's the biggest thing to me. There's good plays on all four of these teams that are playing tonight, but there's not guys necessarily guaranteed to play 32 to 36 minutes in that next game or that next series of game yet. But in this one, I think we have full opportunity. The Pelicans want to be able to squeak in, get the highest seeding that they possibly could for this playoff. They only want to win once. They don't want to have to win back-to-back games. So if Zion sits, the number one person I think I could look at is probably going to be Brandon Ingram. We know that what he's been doing all season long. 8,300 on DK. It's a fair price tag. It's actually, seems like it's a little high. But with Zion out, the usage has been there for him all season long. He's averaging about a 28.9% usage rate with Zion off the floor, averaging about 1.22 DK points per minute. But the reason why I'm gravitating towards him most is mostly because he's power forward eligible too on DK. So, you take Zion out. Anthony Davis is questionable. We'll get to that game in a little while. The power forward options become a lot less appealing. So I think he's probably going to be ranking in, obviously, behind Davis. But as my number 2 ranking power forward on the slate. So I have no issues playing him. How would you feel about playing a little Ingram at that price tag?
Oh, I really like Ingram. I'm high on him, especially if Zion doesn't play. Even with Zion, I'm still gravitating towards him depending on how I want to build my roster. But Ingram, Brandon Buckets, as I like to call him, he was on fire without Zion there. He's still getting about just over 28% usage with Zion on the floor. So his usage didn't really drastically drop. His numbers dropped because he had to play a different style of basketball. The Zion's more of a post guy, so he had to stretch out a little more. But if Zion doesn't play, Brandon Ingram showed us that he was about a top 20 fantasy player on the year, and every night in, night out, he was playing great. And he might be guarded by Joe Ingles, who I would say is probably their worst defender. So if you're gonna have someone guard you on the Jazz, I want it to be Joe Ingles as well. But something I forgot to touch on about the game, the over/under for this game, Jazz and Jazz and the Pelicans, is 224. So it's the higher of the two over/unders on the night. The Jazz are plus 2.5, and the Jazz are plus 15 on the money line, and negative 35 and the Pelicans are negative 135 on the money line. That's brought to you by our good fellows and our partners at mybookie.com, and I'll get to them in a little bit afterwards. But I'm big on Brandon Ingram. He's probably, if Zion doesn't play, he's my number 1 play on that team.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't knock people if they want to play Drew Holiday. His usage is right up there, right next to Ingram. He was really just absolutely balling out prior to that last layoff. The last game he played, it was against Minnesota, granted, but he dropped 65 DK points, and he had another 61.5 just 4 games prior to that. Cough against Minnesota. So, take it for what it's worth. But we know Drew Holiday's game. He's elite. He leads this team. It's basically his team at this point. He stayed there for a reason. He wanted to lead a team. He has a good team around him. But I'm just not in love with that price tag of 8,600. There's a few guys that I could see having just as good of a game as a guy like Holiday. The only, but for, we're talking maybe 1,400 less or 2,600 less, and we'll touch on all those guys. But the minutes should be locked in for him. So maybe a little bit of a safer play in cash. Probably not a guy I'm going to gravitate towards in my GPPs, though. Yeah,
I'm with you there. And I mentioned Brandon Ingram was my favorite on that team, and that's because I do think there is a lot more value on the Jazz tonight. There are some good plays there. You mentioned people who have lower price tags at Drew Holiday. Obviously, Drew Holiday is a really good player, but 8,600, that's a little steep for me comparatively to a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who is only 7,000 on DraftKings, and he has point guard and shooting guard eligibility. You have Mike Conley at 6.2. You have Jordan Clarkson, who they're going to need someone to score off the bench, and he's only a $4.2 thousand price. And I like all 3 of those guys if I wanted to look somewhere on the Jazz.
Oh wow! All right, a couple of those guys that were definitely on my radar. I didn't. Let's say I want to stay on the Pelicans real quick because
Okay.
there's still a few other guys I feel like we need to at least mention. I mean, I know Lonzo Ball is one of your fan favorites. You're the Lonzo truther.
I love
You've been
Lonzo.
preaching his name for a long time. I think he has a fair price tag. He's somebody I would definitely consider. He just can just rack it up in so many different ways, and he was really taking off before the layoff as well. Really kind of stepping out of his own and actually shooting the three ball at an extremely high clip over his last 4 or 5 games right before the layoff. So it looked like he was finally starting to get into tune. But the Zion sitting would probably hurt him slightly, and that might just be enough where I kind of go elsewhere. And then I also wanted to just talk about, obviously the main front court guys who would be, taking Zion's place. Derek Favors starts at center, 5,800. I think is a fair price tag going against his former team. He's done, halfway decent against the Jazz this season already. He played them in 2 games, averaged about 32 minutes against them, and 41 DK points. So he's definitely on my radar. If you have that mid-tier center and that's where you want to go with it, one of the better mid-tier center plays. It's basically for me, I'm either dumpster diving or I'm playing that mid-tier play with Derek Favors, and then Nikola Melli at 4K. He might start. We might see Ingram slide over to the 4. We'd probably have to wait and see. They might end up starting Josh Hart instead. But nonetheless, he should be in for at least mid-20s minutes, low 20 minutes. A guy that we can, at next to, almost mid-salary, he's only 4K. What you're expecting a 5X of 20 points. I could see him getting that 23, 24 with the upside of a slight more. So, only if you need to dumpster dive and you kind of want to do a little stars and scrubs, he's definitely an option. But that's probably all I have. And I think we could probably move on after those guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Lonzo Ball factor, I'm a huge Lonzo Ball guy, but he was playing his best ball when Zion returned. If Zion doesn't play, I would rather gravitate away from him for this game. And you mentioned Melli and Favors. Their price tags are so cheap. Melli will get 20, 25 minutes if Zion doesn't play, and he should hit value there. And Derek Favors, we like to say, everybody likes to call them the revenge games. Whenever he plays Utah, it is a revenge game. So for 5,800, that's not a bad price as well.
Yeah, and I think the only factor you ever have to worry about Favors, he's always a fantastic point per minute guy. It's just the minutes, and we have to wonder with it being the first game back. I'm kind of throwing a lot of that out the window with a few of these teams when we know are absolutely playing for some seeding and playing for something that's very important. So, I would say take it for what it's worth. He probably won't have a ton of ownership. I expect him to have a fair amount just because Montrezl Harrell's out, and that was probably everyone's go-to option. But definitely in play for me. Definitely in play. Probably more safer as a cash play than a GPP, but he does have that GPP upside where he could be considered there as well.
And you can feel kind of safe that knowing that the Jazz play at the 25th highest pace in the league, so he's not going to be run off the court, and they're not going to have to put in a Jackson Hayes or someone else who can run up and down with another big. Rudy Gobert and the Jazz don't really run the ball unless the Pelicans are going to force them to do it. So you can feel a little bit safe that Favors conditioning or minutes should be there because they won't be playing another team at such a high pace that's going to run them off the court.
Absolutely. It's a great call. Gobert just plants it. Gives especially on those long rebounds, the ones that he has no opportunity to grab. He takes his time trotting up there. He pulls like the the old Brook Lopez, except he doesn't spot up at the 3-point line waiting for it. He keeps going underneath the hoop, and half the time the play is over. But he's got that length, man. So I'm ready. I think that's all I got for New Orleans. So Josh Hart is always in consideration just because he is one of the best rebounding guards out there, and looking for those high upside rebounding games, they can really come at any point in time, and we might see this team play a little smaller if they end up running like Royce O'Neal, Ingles at the 3, which they easily could, and we probably will see a lot of that. Then in that case, we'll see probably Hart play at the 3 as well. And, then he'll have some opportunity. We'll find out the starting lineup, I guess. So wait and see on that.
We could even see some Conley, Clarkson, Mitchell, Ingles lineups like that. So that's a good call.
All right, man.
All right. And yeah, I already jumped the gun a little bit on the Jazz. I was staying in the backcourt,
You're
but
fired
I
up, man.
jumped.
Nah, I get
I'm
it.
fired
Good
up for this
plays.
basketball, so I jumped a little bit on the Jazz. Why don't you tell us who are your main plays, who are your sneak plays, and what are you expecting from the Jazz? Right before we get into that, we were mentioning that both these teams are playing for something. The Pelicans are currently the 10th seed, but they're a half a game back from the Grizzlies, and they are tied with the Blazers. The Jazz are currently the 4th seed. They're a game and a half behind the Nuggets for the 3 seed. They are a game up on both the Thunder and Rockets for the 5th and 6th seed, and 2.5 games above the Mavericks, who are the 7th seed. So both these teams need a win. We're expecting them to play. And what are you expecting from DFS perspective?
Well, I think that the matchup's fantastic for the Jazz in this, and we know that it's a high-paced game. Seeing a game with over a 220 total, I think it's at 224 right now with the Jazz involved, is a good thing because we generally know they slow the game down. They want other teams to play at their pace, while the Pelicans, being a young team, wants to play at the complete opposite. So they're going to have a little bit more opportunity for rebounds, defensive plays, a couple extra buckets. And whenever that's being considered, we have to give these guys a little bit of an edge and a boost. And then the next thing I look at is their pricing. And it just seems like they're all just a little bit mispriced on DraftKings.
Yeah.
I think the only person who's probably priced appropriately are the two people might be Joe Ingles and Royce O'Neal. And they're still both in play. But Rudy Gobert at 7,100, I think this is just a great matchup. It's a smash spot for him at that price tag. He himself is averaging just about what Favors is, and that goes to show you that Favors, if he could get those minutes, is a great play. But he's averaging 40 DK points himself at 7,100 and 2 matchups against New Orleans this season. And at 7,100, like I said, you're hitting that 5X. You're getting a little extra, so that's going to put him in play. Donovan Mitchell, you touched on him yourself. You said that why you prefer him over a few of those guards over there in New Orleans, and I think we have to look at him. At this price tag at 7K, it's a tough matchup, don't get me wrong. Drew Holiday is one of the league's best defenders, and that's probably who's going to be sticking to him. And then Lonzo, not too shabby, clogs lanes, very smart player, high IQ, knows exactly where a guard's going to move with the ball. Two great defenders, but Donovan Mitchell's held his own against both of them this season. 3 games they played, he's averaging 37 minutes against this team in 51 DK points. So, sign me up. He's averaging 34 real-life points. So as good of a defending team they are, it just goes to show that pace does impact this game, and that's probably where you're seeing a lot of this advantage. And then we have to also couple into the fact that he gets a little bit of a usage increase with our boy Bojan Bogdanovic now off the floor. Bojan had the surgery right as COVID first took off, like really, really early. The Jazz kind of sniffed this out, and it was something that was bothering him, I guess, all season long. He sat out a few games. I think it was in November and December, and then it just flared up or something more or less just happened. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's getting an extra usage boost because of it. 1%, but he's averaging 0.07 more DK points, which would probably equivalent in a 30-point game to an extra about 2 or 3 points. So it's all these little things and little bonuses, and the fact that I still think he's slightly underpriced at that 7K mark, where he's probably one of my favorite guard options that we have on the slate. Looking just before we left, before COVID, I say we left like everybody vanished, but we all did. If you're a degenerate junkie like us, when we were playing DFS every single day, it's like we didn't know what to do. We basically left. We were walking around in the street aimlessly, just not knowing what to do. But he was priced at, 75, 75, 77, and 81. Now all of a sudden he's 7K and he steps into a fantastic matchup. So regardless, there we go. I think I talked about Mitchell enough, but I think he's a great play. And looking at, I don't think I can really play Conley. I like him. I think he's going to be a good pivot play. I guess if you're going to try to hedge your bet and you're not playing Mitchell and you still want to get some exposure, he's going to see a little increase in usage as well. We kind of saw him struggle just in and out of the lineup, but having the time off to possibly, get right and get healthy is only going to benefit him. He's been battling nagging injuries all season long, but I still prefer Mitchell even with the $800 price difference. And then you said it, man. You've been touching on him. He's one of my favorite plays, and he's a GPP play. It's Jordan Clarkson. I think that he's just going to be rock solid. With Bojan out, he's going to have to be expected to step up off the bench. Ingles being inserted back into the starting lineup, it's going to be his usage off the bench. It's going to be his job to handle the ball. We have to remember that when Joe Ingles plays that second unit, he does play point guard a lot of the time as well. Clarkson's going to have that opportunity. He's averaging with Bojan off the floor just under 1 DK point per minute at 0.98. But the usage, it's the second highest on the team. It's 27%. So, and it's not even that small of a sample size with Bojan off the floor. It's 480 minutes worth. So it's a pretty good solid sample size. And I think that he makes an excellent pivot to some of the guards that we're going to probably talk about in that next game, where a lot of other people are probably going to look to gravitate towards their value.
Yeah, and you hit it right there. I'm going to steal your catchphrase. You hit the nail on the head. Donovan Mitchell at 7K just seems like a robbery for. I don't know why he's priced so low. They did lose their second highest usage player. They lost their second highest scorer. They lost their second highest minutes played guy, and double B. So I'm not sure why Mitchell is only 7K in a prime matchup with a team that wants to run the floor. But that just screams to me as a guy I want to target. And yeah, Jordan Clarkson's only. You mentioned Melly is very cheap and near minimum at 4,000. Jordan Clarkson's only 4,200. He's only 200 more, and he's going to play a lot of minutes without double B there. He like you said, he has their second highest usage now. He is their primary scorer off the bench, and he's probably going to play with that group because we saw Conley and Ingles struggled playing together. So maybe you can see, especially against the Pelicans team that likes to go small sometimes too, you can see a Conley, a Clarkson, a Mitchell lineup with O'Neal or Ingles, whichever one, and then Gobert. So I think Clarkson's going to see a very good amount of time, and he's near minimum. There's not many people around that price tag that can score 20 points in a very good matchup. But how do you feel about the bigs?
The bigs, it's. I mean, Gobert. I think, like I said, I definitely think he's in play at that price tag. He's held his own, and I'm not really touching any of the backup guys. Ed Davis or I think at some points we were seeing Bradley play when other people are hurt. I'm good with all those guys. They're not guys that are really on my radar. I just think right now is with all the pricing discrepancies that we have, we don't need to dive that deep, and if we do. There's a guy in the next game I'd probably prefer over both of them anyway. So I think that's probably it for me. My main targets are probably going to be Mitchell, Clarkson, and then
Rudy.
Maybe Rudy. But like I said, I think I'd probably rather just pay for a guy like Favors, who's 1,300 less than Rudy. He'll probably have a lower ownership. And bottom line, he's probably going to have to, if he could play the minutes, he's going to have to play the minutes. They need a body that's big enough. I don't think they're going to want to play Jackson Hayes too much on Rudy if they don't need to. Jahlil Okafor moves, believe it or not, as slow as I just said Rudy is. Jahlil Okafor hasn't jumped since he was a rookie, and even then, he barely. Did you know his rookie season actually? There was an actual statistic that I think he jumped like only once, I think, or twice on a block shot. It was
That's
crazy
so chubby.
when I heard it. Yeah, he's a very chubby guy, and shout out to him. He's won me some money on some of these nights. So I can't badmouth him.
He gets buckets sometimes. He can play, but that's a hilarious stat, and that is so funny.
Don't quote me on it. It was something along those lines of just basically how chubby he was and how little he got off the ground. I think maybe it was like the amount of air time he spent. Or time spent in the air. It was something hilarious, though, and it involved him not moving very much.
After the show, I'm definitely going to look it up and send you something if I find it, because that's hilarious.
Please do. Please do. We'll bring it up on the next show too, because I'm kind of curious now. I don't want to waste too much time getting off the rails and looking up, exactly how often, Jahlil Okafor stands on his tippy toes. We'll save that for another one though.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good game, and I think we're both in the market or the same thing or ballpark that the Jazz are just a little underpriced, especially in this first game. There's a lot of good value finding in the Jazz, and there's some good value, cheap value in New Orleans as well. Not New Orleans anymore because they're all in Orlando, but we'll say the Pelicans. Now that we're right before we hit the second game, I want to tell you guys about something I'm very excited about. So everybody say it with me now. Sports are back, baby. I've been waiting for this day since March, and now that it's here, I've only got one thing on my mind, and that is my bookie. My bookie is a home run, a slam dunk, triple overtime game-winning shot, all wrapped up into one. I love it. You love it. And that should be all you need to hear in order to start betting today. My bookie has up-to-the-minute odds on all your favorite teams. And with the start of the NBA bubble season today, there's never been a better time to start playing. With my bookie, it's easy. You bet, you win, they pay you. If you're feeling good about your MLB team's chances this year, be sure to check out my bookie's World Series future bets before they're too late. And unless you're a Marlins fan, sorry Marlins fans out there, I don't think you're going to play enough games. But nothing shows you believe in your squad like betting on them before the season's even begun or in the first week. But why stop with baseball? Because smart bettors are always looking towards the future. And in this case, that means basketball, it's starting today, hockey, and football. That should be starting soon as well. Only a month away, guys. My bookie is already accepting bets on all your favorite NBA, NHL, and NFL games. There's never been a better time to start exploring the world of online sports betting. So join today, and my bookie will match your deposit 100%. Let me repeat that. Join today, and my bookie will match your deposit 100%. One more time for the guys in the back. Join today, and my bookie will match your deposit 100%. Plus, they'll toss you a free $10 MLB future wager. All you got to do is enter promo code HOOPBALL. That's HOOPBALL when you're signing up, and you get 100% of your first deposit matched and a free $10 MLB future wager. So remember, at MyBookie, the terms are simple, guys. You bet, you win, they pay. And I'm super excited. I already got my 100% deposit. I can tell you guys it works. I did get my free MLB $10 wager. I didn't put it in yet. I was still deciding. They give you a little bit of time, but it's super exciting, guys. And if you're a bettor, we just went over the lines earlier. If you like to bet, there's no better place than MyBookie. So get on that while you still can. And while we're talking about betting, there is also something else I want to tell you guys about, and that is the Perfect Package 3.0 from Manscaped. Go on manscaped.com, enter the promo code HoopBall20. That's HOOPBALL 20, and get 20% off any order and free shipping. I want to talk about the Perfect Pack. We've been talking about the Lawnmower 3.0, but I want to talk about the Perfect Package 3.0. That also comes with the Lawnmower 3.0. Some awesome boxers. I've tried them. And this is where it gets funny. But we get some ball toner, you get some ball deodorant, and if you want, for $30, or you get another free pair of boxers if you click on a select package. Plus, you get a hygiene plan if that's what you want to do. So all this stuff in one, and it is amazing. I don't know which product I like better. I like betting, but I like to be clean and hygienic as well. So give them both a try and see what you guys like. I know Mike's got his Lawnmower 3.0, and he's super excited about it.
Let's be like very frank here, guys. This is the Perfect Package kit is a luxury. You never think you need anything such as ball deodorant or ball toner. It's not something you wake up in the morning if you've never heard of it and you're like, I need to go to the store. But it's something that once you have, it's tough to view your life any different. I'm just going to leave it at that. I would 100%, it's not something I shelled out on until the promo code rolled around, because it's something I always heard about and saw. And I'm like, you know what, the $20, and that's what you're saving, I think, because it's generally about $100 for the 3.0 Perfect Package with everything in it. And you get $20 off. So it's totally worth it. If you're afraid to try all the good stuff, I would highly recommend at least the 3.0. You can thank us later, guys.
Yeah, and you will not be the only one thanking us. Your significant others and partners and friends will also be thanking us. Just so you get that out there. But while we're here, let's dive into the second game. The big primetime game. You mentioned it earlier. People are probably going to be gravitating towards this game, especially because you see Lakers, Clippers on the docket, the two top teams out west, the two teams that everybody thinks, me personally, the Western Conference champion is going to come out from. So people are going to look at this game and say, I want some exposure to it. But we'll see. I'll ask you what you make sense of it. So the over-under for this game is 215. The other game was at 224, so we expect a lower scoring game. The Clippers are actually favored 4.5 points in this, and a plus 165 on the money line, while the Lakers are a negative 190 on the money line. We have some news. We mentioned Avery Bradley opted out. Rajon Rondo is hurt. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are most likely playing, but they have a Q tag if you're looking on DraftKings right now, but they should both be playing. Lou Williams will not be playing, as we mentioned earlier. Montrezl Harrell will not be playing, as we mentioned earlier. And Patrick Beverley, P-Bev, he might not play as well, but I think he's probable, but we'll have to wait and see. So what do you make of all this news? And obviously, these are the big-priced guys. We got LeBron, AD, Leonard, Paul George, all these big guys, but where are you targeting in this game, and who are you spending up your money for if you're spending it at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've already touched on, all these high-priced guys, and you just mentioned them, and, they're all great plays. We can't sit here and say that Anthony Davis is ever a bad play or LeBron James is a bad play, and it's a 2-game slate. But the bottom line is we can't get those guys like, the Mitchells and the maybe it's Drew Holiday or Brandon Ingrams, and then get all these studs as well. It's just not feasible. So we do have to make some decisions. I'll start with the Lakers side of the ball. I think things are pretty simple on this side. Rajon Rondo, biggest news, and Avery Bradley, both of them being out. We could pretty much, know what to expect as far as where that usage is going to go. Most likely Kentavious Caldwell Pope will draw the start. Not generally a high usage guy. And I mean, really nobody on this team is when they're playing next to Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And I think, he's a play. You can use him. He would be definitely a tournament flyer for me, a tournament play. Wouldn't trust him in any of my cash games. But, he's only averaging 0.73 DK points per minute right now with a 15.8% usage rate with those guys off the floor. So not a guy that I'm also gravitating towards. I'd much prefer a guy like Jordan Clarkson or Zion's out Millie. So the way I'm really just taking this is I'm getting most of my value in that other game. And then I'm going to pay up in this one. I'm going to be looking at LeBron James. I just think that, if I'm not playing Anthony Davis and I wouldn't mind either way. I don't know if he's supposed to be wearing goggles for the game. He did get poked in the eye. And he could come in and play like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the goggles in the Laker uniform. It's completely possible. But he's also averaging 46 DK points against this team. They played a few times already this season. LeBron's averaging just about 52, a little bit more. Small edge, but when the king is coming back, that's the way I'm looking at this. And I always, if I don't need to play Anthony Davis, honestly, I try not to. It's one of those things. I'm like everybody else, man. Sometimes you just get scared when you play him. He's walking in with a questionable tag, but sometimes in a GPP, that could make a big difference. We might see a depressed ownership because everybody else is feeling the exact way. So I prefer LeBron, but hey, I'm not going to knock you if you want to play Davis. Other than that, I'm really not touching any other Lakers.
The catchphrase was there. The not going to knock you guys.
I'm bad, man. I can't stop.
Just saying, LeBron does have some groin soreness. That was a problem last year. Sometimes it flared up on him this year, but that's what he's coming into the game probable for with some groin soreness. But I also don't think it's going to really affect him. It depends if they really want to win this game or not, where LeBron plays a lot. But yeah, if you're gonna play Lakers, you have to pay up. If not, there's only two guys that I would look on if you're going real GPP. Throw a flyer out there, and that would be Alex Caruso. Say they don't want to play LeBron too much. Maybe they'll play Alex Caruso more. And J.R. Smith, for the pure fact that I think it's hilarious and I love this guy. No real rhyme or reason or logic, DFS wise. I just love J.R. Smith.
I like that call. Actually, no, it's a smart play. I would say in tournaments, I don't think I would trust it in cash just because we don't know exactly what kind of role he's going to be walking into. But the fact that Rondo and Bradley are both out, he's going to have to get minutes. And I think he played 25 minutes for them in a scrimmage. Wasn't shy. I think he shot 9 shots, hit 6 or 7 3-pointers in that game. So 25 minutes in a scrimmage. We have to imagine that with these 8 tune-up games, that's what they are for the Lakers. Their seeding is pretty much, I would say, locked with how good they are. So. Yeah. These are going to be the tune-up games where they say, hey, 8 games, we're going to give you minutes. We want to get you acclimated. We want you to play alongside of the starters here and there. we have to imagine he's going to have some fourth quarter time towards the actual important games. They're going to need him out there for some spacing. So I don't mind the call. 3,800 is it's not something that we're overly investing in, and people are going to make decisions between J.R. Smith and Alex Caruso. I think both are kind of very similar plays, but I think Alex Caruso would be the name that would draw a lot more attention than J.R. Smith.
Yeah,
so I prefer JR over him for that sole reason.
This would be JR's first game in however long it's been, over a year and a half, or maybe even more. I forgot we missed 4 months. Probably a year and like 8 months or so. So the last time J.R. Smith played. And you said something that I found a little funny. You said J.R. Smith wasn't shy shooting. And yes, J.R. Smith is never shy about shooting the ball. He doesn't care if there's 23 seconds on the shot clock. This guy will just let it fly. And in DFS, when you're taking a chance on someone, you kind of want them to have that mentality to just let it fly. So he would theoretically be someone I'm looking at too. And I just think he's hilarious.
Absolutely. And the one other thing I'll add, and it's just kind of going back to LeBron, and it's just without Rondo on the floor too, it's just we have to imagine that he's going to be handling the ball more. His usage does increase actually by 2.3%. I didn't mention that prior, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're LeBron James and it increases by 2.3%, that's pretty solid. We'll take any more that we could get from the already greatness.
And without Rondo and Bradley, he's averaging 1.61 fantasy point. I mean, that's not. It's pretty similar most of the time anyway. But he's averaging 1.6 fantasy points per minute to Anthony Davis's 1.43. But yeah, that's pretty much we have all. I'm assuming that's all you have on the Lakers. We hit everybody. But how do you feel about this Clipper team? Because they also have a big priced guy in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who's priced $7,000, and then their number 3 and number 4 player in pricing aren't there. So how do you feel about the Clippers? Who are you gravitating towards? And like you said, you can't get a LeBron, a Kawhi Leonard, and then get a bunch of a little higher priced or medium priced guys in the other game as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some fantastic plays with the injuries, or not the injuries. The guys basically sitting out because they're not ready yet from leaving the bubble. Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, both out. Those chicken wings must be bomb, man. I wonder if that's the name of like a dancer that works there. It's like Chicken Wing or Buffalo Wing, like that's her nickname. So it could have been, but I think that there's definitely some options. Paul George is just stupid cheap, 7,200. Yeah. He's looking fresh, and he said it himself. He finally feels good. It was a guy that was coming off of 2 shoulder surgeries and dealing with a little bit of soreness throughout the season. The 4 months is only going to benefit him. I think they want to, while they might want to limit a lot of their stars minutes, and they rightfully should, they might loosen the leash a little bit with Paul George, simply because they want to make sure that he is amped up, ready to play. We've seen Kawhi Leonard be able to rest plenty of times and just turn it on. That's not something they're worried about. I think they want to make sure Paul George is going to get going when they need him. So he's definitely one of my favorite options looking over there. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards this Portguard situation, and we're going to have to wait and see with Patrick Beverley. If Beverley plays, I want nothing to do with him. Just knowing that, I mean, he's not that solid. He's not that high of a point per minute guy. If they're going to end up running out a lot of LeBron at point, which I mean they would do regardless, but they would probably play Rondo a little bit off ball sometimes. It's going to give him a little bit of a tougher matchup on the defensive end as well. So there's just a few different reasons. I don't expect him to play big minutes. If he's questionable, if he's going to play, that to me, I have it more as doubtful. I don't understand, unless there was a test that came back positive or whatever it may be, that's just not flying under the radar. They're saying that he might be able to play tomorrow. If he gets the test in the morning and it comes back negative, they should know the amount of time it's going to take for him to be able to play in the game that's set at a certain time. So for me, it just kind of seems like the writing subliminally on the walls that he's not going to play. So that's the way I approached it. And I guess that would open up an opportunity for guys like, Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Rodney Magruder, a couple of these other bench guys. And, I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards Reggie Jackson. And I think he's a good play. I think he's a solid play. I like him better, honestly, if Beverly for some reason were to play, because it would just solidify all that second unit usage for him. And that's what we're looking for. Without Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell on the second unit, he would just be able to run rampant. And there's not a large sample size of both these guys being out in the same night when Reggie Jackson's been on the team. We have to remember he kind of came over in the middle, and there hasn't been a lot of situations. So if you go to look, you're not going to find anything that's great. I think it's in a 32-minute sample size, 0.62 DK points per minute. But it's still solid at this price tag. I think, like I said, I think he's going to be extremely chalky if he does sit, and that I would still probably prefer Jordan Clarkson in GPPs, just at a much lower ownership with a little bit of a cheaper salary too. I think he's about 400 less on DK.
Yep.
And I think Kawhi Leonard, fantastic play. Never going to say no to Kawhi. Prefer Paul George in a nutshell for just the pricing difference. It's just drastic, and I think if anything, they play very similar minutes. So give me the guy that's literally $2,000 less. Allows me to spend up on a few other people. And then I guess we have to address the center situation because without Montrezl Harrell, for some reason Zubac, as well as he's played all season, he's been kind of doghoused.
What'd you say? Did you say Zubac?
Zubac. All right. You're known as the name butcher, okay? And you're gonna give me stuff on this. Maybe it's Zubac. Maybe
I am the name butcher, but I think you just Zubac that name. I think it's Zubac.
All right. You're punny. Okay, Zubac. All right, Zubac.
I had to call that out. I heard you say it, and I didn't want to let it go.
Hey, listen, I don't mind that. If I butcher it, I'm gonna have to look it up after.
Maybe you might have to steal my title. If the butcher is calling you the butcher, might have to give you the title.
All right. We'll start keeping track of the name butchers if we must. But I'm not confident that they're just gonna go out there and roll him. I mean, they've played the Lakers 3 times this season. He's averaging 13 minutes against his former team. He's averaging more than a DK point per minute in those games. But the signing of Joakim Noah. It could have been because they didn't know if Harrell was going to play or not. It could have been because of, depth issues that they might have been worried about. To me, it just kind of says that, he's going to end up playing a little bit. And I'm not saying go out there and play Noah, but at 3.1K with these injuries, I wouldn't be shocked if he plays, 15, 16 minutes. He's decent upside. But I don't feel comfortable really in either one of these centers all that much. I don't really love either one of them. Noah is simply for a stars and scrubs type of approach. Zubac, if he was a little bit cheaper, I'd probably have more interest. But at 4,500, I kind of want to steer clear of that. I just think that, that's drifting into that territory where for 12K, 1,200 more, I can get a guy like Favors. So that's probably where I'd rather go with that one. So that's really it for me, man. I'm not, like I said, too in love with a lot of these Clippers. It's going to be, the expensive guys. I don't mind Reggie Jackson. He's going to have some ownership with him. And it makes sense to kind of pivot towards a guy like Clarkson, but I will have shares of him. And, I guess don't even sleep on Landry Shamet, too. He should probably see, decent minutes with all these guards out. If Beverly were to sit, he'd be a better play. But a few decent options.
So I'm with you on the Paul George. I think he's going to be they want him to get more minutes and get more usage and get up to speed more than Kawhi Leonard. Because as you said, Kawhi Leonard has done starting and stopping for the last 2 years. He is a robot. This dude can get turned off and then turned on and go full bore right out of the gate. So I think Paul George gets more usage there, and I like him at $2,000 or $2,000 cheaper. I like how you said you like Reggie Jackson better if Pat Bev doesn't play. Or Pat Bev does play, my bad. And I like that call because if Pat Bev does play, a lot of people that are chalking up Reggie Jackson are going to say, oh, he's not going to play or get the usage or get the minutes because Pat Bev is playing now. So you can still get him, and I don't think it's going to be a very big factor into playing him as well. I don't think they're going to play Bev 35 minutes right out of the gate. He hasn't been there or practiced or played lately. So I do like that call as well. I'm not really into the... Before I say his name, I do got to say we both actually butchered it. I looked it up after we said it. It's Ivatsu Zubats. So we were both butchering it. I tried to call you
Pokemon Zubat.
Yeah,
Zubat.
like a Zubats.
Zubats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what it was. I remember those guys.
I was saying you were butchering it, and then I was butchering it as well. It just happens. Some of these names and the pronunciations, I'm not good. I've been. It's just not there.
Well,
but yeah.
you lived in a foreign country for a few years when a lot of these guys were coming in. I don't know if any of you guys know that about Santino. He was actually teaching English as a second language in China. I think was it for 2 years, Santino?
Yeah, just about 1 month or 1 year, 11 months and a couple of days. So just about 2 years.
Yeah. So he was basically drowned out from everything that was going on in the outside world. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on the name butchery. I'm gonna blame it on a speech impediment. I'm fumbling over here. I got to be a little bit better.
Yeah, and I like how I'm not really trusting Zubac, or however you say his name now. I'm not really trusting Zublaka or Noah. Noah hasn't played all year. Zublaka, I'm going to say that now so I don't butcher it. He was not really conditioned for those scrimmages, and he doesn't look like he can play more than 30 minutes. One guy I do want to ask you about, though, no, we haven't touched on, is how do you feel about the Morris brother?
Well, this is a game that should have both Morris brothers, right? So,
yeah.
gotta be a little bit more.
How do you feel about Marcus Morris?
I think they brought him in here for a reason. I think that they're going to probably he's going to get some center minutes. I think at some point in this game. I'm not fully confident, and he's another reason why I think I'm not going to be gravitating towards those two centers that we just spoke about. Simply because there's this team, they can operate without centers. Montrezl Harrell isn't a big guy. he's basically almost the size of PJ Tucker, a little bit bigger. So it's not like they need size to operate, and they didn't play a lot of size going against this team earlier in the year, 3 times that they played them. So I'm not really gravitating towards him. I think at 4,700, it's a fair price tag. He makes a little bit more sense in GPPs because if you're really looking for like a cash value, you're looking at like 20, 24, 23 DK points. And I could see that, but I probably have him pegged 19, 18, somewhere around there. I don't think he's going to go out there and run out 30 minutes. If he was playing 30 minutes, that's the thing. He very well could. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't, but I'm not really trusting anybody in this Laker or Clippers game to play anything more than 31 at the absolute most. And if that's the case, I'm looking for the guys that are the highest point per minute. And we have plenty of other options in that first game that we talked about with guys that we feel way more confident getting minutes who are also at pretty decent price tags as well. So that's kind of the way I'm gravitating towards my initial builds. And we'll see. We'll have some news break. We're waiting on Zion. We're waiting on Patrick Beverley. And, once that news comes out, we'll be able to go in there and attack this. But that's kind of like the nutshell, I guess, slate, premature slate build I got going on right now.
Awesome. Yeah, and I like that first game as well. It's just a faster pace, higher over-under, just better value for your play, especially with no Lou Will and no Montrezl Harrell. But I think we touched on both these games as well as we could, and for a pretty long time. I wanted to go a little longer on this one for this. I know it was a 2-game slate. We're going about 45, 50 minutes, but this is the first day back. So I wanted to get that full 45, 50 minutes and get everybody a little bit pumped. I know for future reference, guys, we're not going to do 8 games into 2 hours, but this is day 1, and we got basketball back. We can finally, hopefully, cross our fingers, finish this season and get somebody crowned champion, LeBron, and go from there and see what we have for next year. But I'm just super excited to do this, and I know you are too, Mike. And this first night, we got some good basketball and good teams playing, and it's only going to get better from here.
Ooh, buddy. Yeah, I'm fired up, man. I'm probably going to be let's just say, man, I might be having a cold one on tomorrow's show. There might be a cold one cracked. It's going to be opening. I'm treating this like opening day, opening night. That's the way I look at this. 4.5-month layoff is normally what we do in between seasons. Yep. So, like, for me, this is like the start of the new season, and I'm viewing it the same way. So, I don't ever, recommend playing more than you can ever afford, or usually on a nightly basis, 10 to 15% of your bankroll at most is where I usually float. But for these first few days, guys, it's treat it like the regular season, the start of the regular season, where there's going to be major pricing discrepancies where if you could take advantage of them, you should. A lot of people are going to be gravitating what we call fish, people that don't normally play DFS or don't normally play basketball, but they need something to do. They miss sports. They want to gamble. They want to do something, and they're going to play. Some of these contests are huge. Some of these prize pools are huge. So I would say make sure you entered the right contest. If you're only looking to play 5 different lineups, maybe don't look at the 500 entry max or the 160 entry max. If you wanted to play the 3 entry max, single entries, and because you only wanted to roll out 1 or 2 lineups, that's the best way to do it. play your 50-50s, play some heads up if you'd like. And I know, like I said, if you're normally playing 10 to 15, these are the type of nights for the first few days where I would probably be playing 20 or 25. If you're confident, you did the research, you should have a major edge on more than half the field.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it any better myself, Mike. And yeah, everybody, like he said, 4.5 months off. That's about 16 weeks or over 112 days or so. More than a third of a year we missed basketball. Now we have it back. And Mike just gave you a great breakdown of what to play and who to play and how to put your bankroll. So go after it, get it, and then win some money. And then don't forget MyBookie if you want to bet as well on a different type of platform. But that's all we have for you tonight, Mike. Do you want to give them anything else before we get out of here and say happy NBA Day?
I'm giving it all she got, Captain.
So Mike's tapped out now. He gave great breakdowns, and we can't wait to help you guys through this NBA Resumption League and the playoffs and then next year. But let's get through this first night first, and let's kill it, guys. Have a good one. Again, this is on behalf of myself, Santino Cacone, and Mike Apatria. We are Hoopball DFS today, and we'll be back here again. Oh, Mike will be back here again tomorrow.
Later, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.